Welcome to BACKtalk, the premier podcast from Successful Black Parenting Magazine, featuring in-depth conversations and expert insights on crucial topics for Black families. We are ranked one of the top 4 Black family podcasts on FeedSpot, and we're now number 1 on Million Podcasts as well. I'm your host, Janice Robinson-Celeste. How do you explain to your child that sometimes no matter how hard they work or how talented they are, they still might not get their moment to shine? And how do you teach them that their worth isn't defined by the spotlight? Well, stay tuned. I have author and principal dancer with the American Ballet Theatre, Misty Copeland, on BACKtalk today, and we're going to find out.
This is BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine, the most listened to podcast for parents by parents.
Hello, successful Black parents. Thank you for tuning into BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine, your go-to podcast talk show for parents. Share our podcast with your friends. Shout it out to your followers because sharing is truly caring. And don't forget to use hashtag BACKtalk when you post. Today, I have in the studio Misty Copeland, who in 2015 made history as the first Black woman to be promoted to principal dancer in the American Ballet Theatre's 75-year history, one of the most prestigious positions in classical ballet worldwide. Welcome to BACKtalk, Misty.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, we're so happy to have you here on the show. And you're so accomplished, right? So I want you, though, to tell everybody about yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, my name is Misty Copeland. I am a ballerina. I'm an author. I'm a mom. I am someone who has spent a lot of time, as a dancer, as a person in the world, thinking about, what it means to show up with heart and with courage. And so, that's why it's been so awesome just to be able to step into this role, over the last decade now of author, and being able to write this next chapter of Bunheads, the dance of courage, that, was really just inspired by my actual journey as a young dancer, and what it means to have real emotions as a dancer and what we go through experiencing disappointment and dealing with that with grace and the relationships and all of those things that help you to build resilience along the way.
And we're going to talk about all of that because the new book is great and that's exactly what it's about. But before we get started, we always do an icebreaker. Just what's something about you, either as a dancer or a mom, that people might not know about?
I think that people are often surprised at just how clumsy and silly and goofy I am.
I would never guess.
I know. I think my husband is just like, whenever something happens to me, he's just like, oh my God, again. But I think it's like, I've spent so much of my life, being so focused and, whether it's on stage or in the studio. And when I can just have a moment to let go and let loose, whether that's, really embracing when things don't go exactly as planned, whether that's on stage or as a parent, I think that it's a part of the journey that young people should recognize and acknowledge. Doesn't always mean failure, but what you do with those opportunities. It's one of my favorite things about being in a live performing art, is that you don't always know what's going to happen. And I think what makes you a professional is how you deal with those unexpected moments.
Right. And now you're passing that on to children in the book on how to deal with that. And the character dealt with it so gracefully. But you've penned a few children's books now, right? So you have Bunhead 1 and 2, I'll call it. Yeah. But what inspired you to become a children's author?
I think that it's really, for me, throughout my journey, it's been about kind of reflecting on, the legacy I'm leaving behind, but also the legacies that I'm a part of. And I think that within that, storytelling, not only sharing our history and those are the shoulders, the shoulders that I stand on, but also being able to create new stories that really create a positive example of what it is to be a dancer, and really showing representation in spaces that you might not see it, like classical dance. And so, any I guess, like, platform that I can utilize to bring more access and opportunity to young people, and exposing them to dance and to the arts, I will take. And so, being an author and writing children's books just feels so right, and being able to set a positive example.
Well, the character in the book is Misty, right? So that's you. I'm just assuming you didn't, that's probably your personality. But, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
But in the Dance of Courage, in this particular book, Bunheads Act 2, Kat doesn't get to perform the role she loved and she's so good at. Have
Mhm.
you ever had a moment like that in your career?
Oh, absolutely. This is, I've always felt that it's important for me to be transparent and honest about the ups and downs of what it is to be a performer. We often only see this really polished uh, depiction of what it is to be a ballerina. You see this perfect, image of a dancer, like in this egg that's like twirling, and but there's so much that comes with getting to that place of shining. um, Injury is such a big part of the journey, and also just not always being given what you might think you deserve or what you've worked hard for, and learning how you can improve and how you can really advocate for yourself. And so, I think about times when, with the Firebird, which was a really big role for me, almost didn't happen because of a really severe injury that I had, and then was kind of cut short because I was dealing with an injury. But there have been countless roles that I felt like I should be doing, and for years wasn't given an opportunity to. So, yeah, there have been times I think that I felt like invisible in this space, and I
Mhm.
fought so hard to belong in it. But like Kat, the character in the book, I had to find another kind of strength, and keep showing up, um, and sometimes it's not even just to keep fighting for yourself, but to support others, and knowing that you're a part of a bigger, a bigger thing, and supporting my peers, and learning what that resilience looks like is so important.
Well, the Dance of Courage is about Don Quixote, right? So, but you talked about Kitri, who's a character in that. Why was it important to center the story on Kitri, like a bold, love-driven character?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I find Kitri to be such an interesting character because she doesn't really fit into this like cookie cutter mold of ballet traditional characters where, she's just waiting for some prince to come save her and rescue her. But she's joyful and fiery, and she's got so much complexity. Like, she's not just a side character, like she's really the heart of the story. She also was a character that I fell in love with because it was Don Quixote was the first ballet that I ever saw live. It was American Ballet Theatre performing it. I was only 15 years old. And that was the moment that I was like, this is what I want to do for the
Wow.
rest of my life. Like, this is the profession that I want to step into. And so, I really thought that this character would be great for young girls, especially to see. And yeah, I mean, I think that it's important for us to give women like an opportunity to shine on their own, and be the lead in their story.
Right. And I don't want to give too much of the story away, but how can parents help their kids process disappointment? You talked about resilience earlier. Is that something? Because Kat shows great resilience in the book, even though she did not get the part.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and I've learned so much, of course, throughout my journey as a dancer that I often say like has prepared me for being a parent. Dealing with being in a discipline where you have to learn resilience and patience, and so I think that it starts with giving kids the permission to feel it. That disappointment is real and it's valid, but then we help them like to move through it and not around it and not ignore it. And we talk about what they can control, and that's effort and their attitude and how they treat others, and just reminding them that one setback doesn't like define their journey or their whole story.
Right. Now, well, as a mom, you have a Black son in today's world. What does courage look like to you, especially with the young Black boy?
That's such a great question. um, you know, Courage to me, like today, is really about truth telling. I think it's about like protection, and teaching my son just to be proud of who he is, and to move through the world with kindness and confidence, but also just to prepare him for like the realities that yet he may face. And so, I think it's a balance. It's about like loving him while still like empowering him. But it's really amazing to see already at this point, he's 3 years old, the difference in how I was as a young person, which was like extremely insecure, and I felt like I had a lot of shame that I was like, hiding, because of the way that I grew up, and he's just so confident and seems so self-assured, and so it's really amazing.
Well, we have resources now to break those generational curses and to raise our children the way we would have wanted to be raised. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, what role do books like Bunhead play in shaping Black girls and the way they see themselves in dance, friendship, and leadership? Because I saw all of that in your book.
Yeah. Well, representation matters.
Mhm.
I would have loved to have a book like this when I was growing up. I think maybe I would have stepped into ballet sooner, had I seen a book like this. And I think that when Black girls see themselves reflected with joy, and that's like so important at the heart of everything that I do, is really showing that the joy in dance, but also the complexity and the power. And I think that it really changes what they believe is possible. And so, these books tell them that you belong here, and that your voice matters, and your friendships are beautiful, and their dreams are valid, even if no one's dreamed them before. Like, their dreams are valid.
Right. And your main character, we mentioned his name, Misty, and you've written about your own journey in ballet. So, how much of your younger self do you see in that character of Misty? Is it 100% you, or is it just like hints of you?
No, it's me.
It's you. Okay. Fantastic.
I really, I had such a positive experience in ballet when I started my journey, which is not always the case, especially for Black and brown girls, or dancers in general, Black and brown boys and girls. And I was so fortunate to be in a studio and have a teacher, Cynthia, whose character is in the book, that nurtured me and allowed me to feel like I was in a safe environment. There was so much joy, and these relationships that I was building, it was building me and my character. And so I really wanted to highlight the beauty of all these different young people coming together from different cultures and different communities, and finding this commonality in the studio, and the beauty, and in our differences, but finding commonality in that. So yeah, it's definitely based on like my real friendships and real characters. And Kat was my best friend growing up. And so it's pretty special to be able to write to these characters that I think so many people can relate to.
Now, has Kat commented on these books? Has she said anything? How does she like her character?
She loves it. I mean, she's definitely a part, I'm like texting her and we're like reminiscing and I'm like, do I remember this right? Because in my mind, like I loved going to her house and having sleepovers because it was like this beautiful, vibrant, colorful experience and fantasy. She's Mexican and it was just like always like this party kind of atmosphere with so much joy. And her house was always literally like I'd come one weekend and it was painted purple and I'm like, what? How did this happen? It was so amazing. And so I wanted to really depict that. So she's definitely involved.
Well, what a wonderful journey writing this book. That sounds so beautiful to reminisce and then to come up with your stories. Now, has motherhood changed the way you create stories for children or?
I think that it's definitely made me more intentional. Like I feel like I now see things through my son's eyes. And it's not just about ballet. It's about, I think a bigger message. It's about identity and compassion and courage, like, with this book. I also think just more about how stories feel and how they land emotionally. And I think about like the books my son is drawn to and why he might be drawn to them. I can't really ask him those questions yet because he's so young. I don't think he can really like decipher and take apart why he's into them. But I think that I'm trying to, think of the way that he's thinking, where he's so creative in the way he's even telling stories at this point. And a lot of it's like connected to being really silly and just kind of out there. And so just kind of broadening the way I'm thinking about storytelling.
I know you're nurturing that because that's so important when you see them interested in something, as you know.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to a young girl, maybe who's watching from the sidelines, who feels like her moment hasn't come yet?
Oh, yeah. I think that it's so important for us to acknowledge and say that your moment is coming, but not to kind of sit back and wait quietly. I think that you can use this time when it's not your moment to grow, to continue working and learning about who you are. Something that I've learned throughout my journey is that the spotlight isn't like the only place where growth happens and where magic happens. But, when your moment arrives, you'll be ready because you've not stopped and, stopped believing in what it is you want and working.
Right. Now, and what's next for you in your career, whether it's on stage, publishing, or beyond?
Yeah, there's so much more of everything that I've already been doing. I'm so fortunate that I've been able to continue to do all kinds of things, all connected to ballet and expanding what a ballerina could look like and what this space looks like. I've been able to do that throughout my journey. And so, my farewell performance with American Ballet Theatre is approaching in the fall, which is so exciting. Like, I don't think of it as a sad moment at all. It feels like it's just like this thank you to this chapter of my career, where American Ballet Theatre has given me this incredible platform, and the community and fan base that's been built in this time has been unbelievable. And so, I feel like it's a launching pad for more to come. It's more books I'll be writing. It's more storytelling, through film, with my production company, Life in Motion Productions, with my foundation and the programs that we're creating, and just continuing to create space for artists and young people and for their voices. And so I think it's just continuing to think about impact. Yeah.
I have a feeling your final performance will have the longest standing ovation ever. 'Cause if I know I would be there, I would not sit down because you
Oh,
just meant so much to young girls, especially, but to everyone. And just to see, and know your story, from the beginning to now is almost miraculous. But you've worked so hard at the same time. So
thank
I just want to make sure, I tell you that. And anybody who's watching who doesn't know who Misty Copeland is, I don't even know why you're my friend right now. Like, why are you here? So where can our listeners follow your journey and support your work?
Yeah. You can follow me. I have a website, mistycopeland.com. I'm on Instagram at Misty on Point, through the Misty Copeland Foundation. You can find Bunheads Act 2 wherever books are sold and online and in bookstores. So, it's exciting to be able to continue to grow in this way. And thank you so much for having me.
No, I really am happy that you're here, and we're going to follow you as well all over social media and hold you up in spirit from wherever we are. So I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
And a big shout out to all of you watching the replay of this episode of BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. Be sure you follow us on social media. Click on everything, the follows, the likes, the ads. And until next time, I wish you all the best and much success. Take care. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. We'll see you soon.